Hello there, welcome to our Sky Tonight program. My name is Seth Mayo. I'm the curator of astronomy for the Loma Planetarium, and we're going to round out the month of July as we talk about the dates of July 26th through August 1st. We'll begin by looking towards the west as we say farewell to Leo. We'll talk about some other objects still inside this constellation. Then we're going to look over towards the east in the morning during sunrise as we talk about the dog days of summer and the rise of the brightest star in our night sky, Sirius. We'll mention a couple lesser known meteor showers that are peaking this week, and I'll update you on the position of the moon relative to some planets we can find in the sky. So let's get to it. At this time of the year, if you look very low in the west after sunset, you can start to say farewell to the spring constellation of Leo the Lion. And I know Leo is for the spring, but you could see him for a good part of the summertime as well. And if we look very low in this area, it has to be really clear in your western horizon. You can still see some of the stars of the head of this lion, which looks like a hook, or what is sometimes called the sickle. And then the rest of the constellation kind of sticks up a little higher in the sky. So you have a little more time to see the body of Leo and the tail up here, ending with the star back here called Denebola, which means tail. So Leo is getting really low. The head might be quite difficult to actually see, but you might see some of the other stars of this great constellation. And if you do happen to be looking a little more closely in this area of the sky, what you'll definitely notice is the bright planet Venus, the brightest planet that you can see from Earth. We've talked a lot about this planet over the last few episodes. So that will be just below the belly of Leo. And if you look a little bit below Venus, closer to the western horizon, what you may have a chance of seeing are two celestial objects that are getting closer and closer to each other. Now, these are going to be quite tough to see because of how low they are. You have to compete with some of the sunset glow and atmospheric haze or just bad weather. So it can be quite challenging, but I'll mention this just in case you do have a clear enough view. So you'll find the brightest star in Leo right here called Regulus. And not far from it to the right is this reddish looking dot here. That is the planet Mars. And Mars has been getting dimmer and dimmer as we're moving farther and farther away from the planet, and it's sitting very low. So Mars is quite difficult to see right now. But if you do see these objects and we go through the week, watch what happens here. You'll find as we move out of Monday the 26th, we can get to Tuesday the 27th. You see they're a little closer there. When we get to the 28th on Wednesday, and then by Friday the 29th, they're pretty close by then. This is called a conjunction when two or more celestial objects get very close to each other, especially prominent objects. And so we can see Mars just a bit above and to the right of Regulus. Now here in Stellarium, there's a nifty little tool that helps you to figure out kind of angular measurements or angular diameters in the sky. And so I hit this little button here, and what I can do is I can click on Regulus and kind of measure out to Mars right about there. And this tells us this is about 38 arc minutes apart. Keep in mind that there are 60 arc seconds in an arc minute, and there are 60 arc minutes in a degree. So this actually says 38 arc minutes and 19.17 arc seconds. And so this is not a perfect measurement. This is kind of a rough measurement here, but it gives you kind of a ballpark figure of how far away these are. And as I've also mentioned, half a degree or 30 arc minutes is about the width of a full moon. It's also the width of our sun as seen from our sky as well. So that kind of gives you an idea that you could fairly easily fit a full moon between Regulus and Mars during this conjunction, especially on the 29th of this week. Shifting our attention from sunset in the west to sunrise in the east, we have something interesting rising with the sun, and that is the brightest star in our night sky called Sirius, which normally you know is a wintertime star. And this star has an interesting connection with something that's going on right now here in the northern hemisphere, something called the dog days of summer. And of course, this is the hottest time of year in July and August. We know that very well here in Florida. We don't have to be reminded that it's a hot time of year. We just know it when you step outside. But generally in the northern hemisphere, this is the hottest time of the year. And to the ancient Greeks, they actually thought it was this hot because of the rising of Sirius, which is known as the dog star. It's part of the dog constellation that we now call Canis Major. Normally, if you want to find this dog, and especially Sirius, you find Orion the Hunter, which you actually can see early in the morning right now. There's Orion's belt right there, and the three stars of the belt actually point towards Sirius. But right now I don't have the sun high enough or Sirius high enough to see it just yet, but that can help you to figure out what direction to look towards. And the name Sirius actually comes from the ancient Greeks. It means scorching or scorcher. And the reason for that name is because people long ago actually thought it was really hot because Sirius was rising at the same time the sun is at this time of the year. So we can kind of see that in here. I'm going to speed time forward to our local sunrise. Of course, this is in the 6 o'clock hour, so it depends on your specific location. But if you look very carefully here, it's kind of hard to see. And you can look right above the eastern horizon, and there you can see a little star right there. That is Sirius. So not as bright as it can normally get because it's competing with the sun's glow and it's really low. But if we turn off the atmosphere, we can see it just a little bit better. And there you can see that star rising pretty much in line with the sun. It's very close. This is called the helical rising of this star. Helical just means rising with the sun. And so the sun's rising just around the same time, maybe just a little bit after, at least from our part of the world. And there it goes. So ancient Greeks thought that the combination of this really bright star with the sun made it exceptionally hot. They thought the intensity of Sirius would contribute to the intensity of the sun. And so that's where the dog days of summer come from the dog star rising with the sun at this time of the year. And they associated the dog days of summer with high temperatures, thunderstorms, drought, and even bad luck. So it wasn't the most cozy time of the year for certain people. But it does have an interesting connection to this star. Of course, we know that's not the case. This star does not contribute to our weather in any way, but it's an interesting idea, and you can see why people thought it when they noticed this star rising at this time of the year. So we're still in the dog days of summer, and we're watching the star rise higher and higher. And if you do pay attention to this through the rest of the year, you'll see Sirius rise earlier and earlier as it enters our morning sky. And of course, you'll really see it by wintertime, since this is technically a wintertime star. Now, if we look towards the east-southeast, a little bit later in the evening this week, we have some interesting things going on in this part of the sky. And what's been really great, and steadily rising higher and higher, are the two gas giant planets, Jupiter, which is a little bit brighter, and Saturn, that's a little bit higher up and rises just a little bit earlier than Jupiter. Saturn is not as bright, but it does stand out amongst the background of stars. So those two planets are rising higher, and it's nice to kind of see them earlier in the evening. And on Monday night, the 26th, you'll find the moon is still kind of lingering in this area. The moon will be in its waning gibbous phases. So on Monday the 26th, our waning gibbous moon will be just below the planet Jupiter. But if we go through the rest of the week, the moon will continue its eastward trek as it's waning, and you'll see it a little bit later in the evening, or you have to stay up later to actually see the moon as you see it get less and less in phase. So that's something to look out for when it comes to the moon, early in the week near Jupiter, later in the week a little farther away. But if we go back to about the 28th, 29th, around there, what is happening around this time are the peak of two lesser known meteor showers. So I'm going to turn on our meteor shower button here, and you're going to see a whole bunch of different ones here, but I want you to focus on just a couple here. And one in particular, the radiant point, is near Jupiter, and that's this one right here. You'll find it says Southern Delta Aquarids. So this meteor shower in particular that I'm mentioning here is part of a constellation, one of the zodiac signs, called Aquarius, which you find in this area of the sky. This is Aquarius, the water bearer right here. One of the dimmer constellations, a little more difficult to see. But this meteor shower does radiate for this point, and as we've mentioned, radiant points are not exactly where you're going to see the meteor shower, but at least where they come from, or if you trace the meteors back, they'll radiate from a general location. So they do so right here. The southern Delta Aquarids are not one of the most active meteor showers, and actually is more favorable in the southern hemisphere, where this is a little bit higher in the sky and in a little bit better position to see. But around the evening of the 28th or the early morning before sunrise on the 29th is the peak of the southern Delta Aquarids. The actual meteor shower runs for a good part of the summer. Here in the top left, it does say from about July 12th through August 23rd. So you have a lot of the summertime to actually see maybe a stray meteor or two from this particular meteor shower. And this one's kind of interesting because we're not entirely sure where it comes from, but there's speculation that it comes from a comet called 96P Machholz. And so that is one idea. It may come from something else, but so far that is the most likely case. A comet that takes about 5 years to go around the sun, and one that we have caught through some of our solar observing telescopes. So for the peak of this, on the 28th, 29th, you might see 15 to 20 meters per hour, so not a ton, but there is a chance to see them. Now, on the peak, the moon is still kind of in this area. If you go a little bit later, because it's usually best to look at meteor showers very early in the morning, the moon will still be kind of in the vicinity. And the moon's glare can affect how many meteors that you can see, because they're very small. These little bits of dust and debris and particles from the comet are not always really bright, and so you need a darker sky to see them. So the moon might be a little tough. So if you do wait a little bit after the peak, getting a little bit near the end of the month or even into the beginning of August, the moon will be farther away. So it will be a little bit darker, and you may have a little more favorable conditions to see the southern Delta Aquarids. Now also around this time, on the 28th, 29th, are the peak of the Alpha Capricornids. So that's another lesser known meteor shower, not as prominent as a southern Delta Aquarids, but it's also kind of going on at this time. Alpha Capricornids refers to the radiant being inside the constellation Capricorn, the sea goat. By the way, I think one of the weirdest constellations, but hey, that's just my opinion. Anyway, this meteor shower's radiant occurs in this part of the sky, inside, or at least near that constellation, and just above the planet Saturn right here. So that's another one that peaks around the same time the southern Delta Aquarids peaks, and this comes from a comet called 169P Neat is the name of it. And so this one happens every year around this time as well. So sometimes you can have multiple meteor showers kind of colliding or going on at the same time. And we're still not at the most busy meteor shower part of the year. That starts in August, because the second half of the year is when we start having the best meteor showers. We have to look forward to the Perseid meteor shower that comes up in August. So if you do see a stray meteor or two around this time of year, you might be catching one of the meteor showers that I've mentioned. But you do have some interesting areas to look at around here with Saturn, Jupiter, and the moon lingering nearby. So that's kind of nice to see that all kind of in the east and southeastern part of the sky a little later in the night, or if you get up early in the morning to see those meteor shower peaks. That's it for another edition of our Sky Tonight program. Thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, please stop by our Museum of Arts and Sciences and, of course, our Lohmann Planetarium. We are running shows daily. We have a lot of great programs coming up. So if you want any more information about all that, please check out our website. So, hope to see you back here again. Take care and happy stargazing.